Good morning, class. Happy Thursday. Yesterday we had quite the story with the cricket in Times Square. We're going to be taking a look at some questions about point of view related to that story. But first, we want to read our little Thursday story. It's just 2 pages long. It's not a fantasy. It's called a legend. Okay, so this is, a lot of people will make a legend about how some part of nature came to be. And see if you can't get it. It's a little bit strange story. We'll work through it together. It's called The Girl and the Chenoo. The fiercest Chenoo of the North was a cold-hearted predator and thief. With one swipe, the Chenoo's talons uprooted beans, corn, and squash to satisfy his enormous hunger. Fish jumped out of the water at the sight of his terrifying figure. Whenever the Chenoo howled, hailstones fell from the skies, battering the homes of many people. So my brother and I were prepared for war when we followed the Chenoo's giant footsteps to our winter home. Instead, we found my sister dressing the monster's wounds. So here's the Chenoo, and this little sister is dressing them. That means bandaging up. My sister never spoke much, but her quiet nature and caring ways were complementary to the skills of my brother and me as hunters. Without a word, she gathered firewood, tanned hides, repaired the wigwam, and prepared our meals. She turned nervously toward us. "Brothers," she whispered, "Grandfather will be joining us for dinner tonight." Puzzled, my brother and I looked at each other. The fearsome giant yawned, blowing icicles off branches overhead. He bellowed, "Granddaughter, what will you be making tonight?" Now wait a minute. I thought she said Grandpa was going to be visiting, and she's bandaging this ferocious beast up, and the ferocious beast calls her granddaughter. I'm trying to figure this out. I spoke with a shaky voice. "Only a hare and a goose, grandfather." The Chenoo snorted and disappeared into the woods. He returned with 4 large moose. Now, I don't know if you know anything about moose, but moose are huge. They're way bigger than deer. They're way bigger than elk. Not quite as big as an elephant, but they're huge animals. If you were to hunt and get a moose, that would be quite the feat. But he went out and got 4 like it was no big deal. My sister prepared a feast unlike any other we have ever seen. I wondered how long our sister could keep this treacherous beast tame. The Chenoo was not trustworthy. Surely he would soon destroy everything in his path. But somehow, my sister's kindness changed his ways. One warm night, my sister turned to the Chenoo and said, "Grandfather, it's time to return to the village." He nodded and walked up to the fire. He had always kept away from the fire, but now he asked for more firewood. My sister added wood until the flame shot up over his head. He coughed and moaned. "Ugh." "Grandfather," my worried sister called. Once the smoke cleared, the Chenoo had become a wrinkly old man. Hunched over the fire, he coughed up a piece of ice shaped like a Chenoo. And it was his icy heart. The old man smiled as the ice melted. "Let's go home," he said. This is how my people tell the story of the, now this is a kind of a hard word to say, Passamaquoddy girl who melted the heart of the Chenoo. Now, I don't know if you guys have a grouchy grandpa, but my mom's father, we called him Grouchy Grandpa Gilmore. He had lost his wife when my mom was very young, and he had raised all these children on his own, and now all the kids were out of the house, and, well, Grandpa Gilmore had lots of grandkids, and we would go there and we'd be happy. "Man, stop jumping on the couch," and "stop making so much noise." He was always so grouchy. But we learned that he was grouchy probably because he had lost his wife so early in life. But 2, he hated to be alone. Even though he was kind of cranky when we were around him, he actually loved having us around him. Well, that's what kind of this is. This was not really a Shanu, a monster. It was really grouchy grandpa. But the caring and kindness of the young girl changed her grandpa from being a grouchy grandpa to a nice, kind old man. Again, this is a legend, and so it's just a made-up story. All right, guys, let's take a look at our assignment today. If you pull out of your folders, it looks like this. It's Unit 3, Week 1, The Cricket in Times Square. We've been working really hard on point of view this week, so we're going to take a look at that on the front side. Go ahead and start with your name at the top. You'll need your books. A lot of the answers are found on pages that they give you, so they make it nice and easy. I'm going to turn back to page 180 and 181 here, the beginning of our story. The question says, what is the narrator's point of view? And then how do you know? List some details from the text. So on this first page, what's the point of view of the narrator? Tucker Mouse had been watching the Benellis and listening to what they said. Next to scrounging, eavesdropping on a human being was what he enjoyed most. That was one of the reasons he lived in Times Square subway station. As soon as the family disappeared, he darted across the floor and scooted up the newsstand. At one side, the boards had separated and there was a wide space he could jump through. He'd been in a few times before, just exploring. For a moment, man, is he curious. I'm going to hold on to that thought right there. Curious. What is the narrator's point of view? Well, first of all, I'm going to put on a third person point of view. And then I'll put down, there is a character. And then in parentheses, I'm going to put Tucker Mouse. Who is curious and I'm going to go up the side here, adventurous. Curious and adventurous. How do you know? List details from the text. Just exploring. He had been in the newsstand exploring. Make sure I spell it right. There it is. Exploring. I'm going to put down, he wanted, psst, psst, who's up there? He wanted to find out who was there. All right, so we went to the text, we found our evidence, and we wrote down our thoughts about it. The second one is going to key right on what we just came up with. I turned to page 82 and 83. It says, what does the narrator say here that reveals the point of view that Tucker is curious? We got to find some evidence that says Tucker was curious and we want to find out more. And I think this is the part where he asks about the story. So he's very curious. What was the story about? Especially around rush hour. When we had just finished. How did you get to New York? Is that where you're from? Yes, said Tucker Mouse. How did you get to New York? Said Tucker Mouse. It's a long story. Tell me. Here it is. Tucker is very interested in capital C on Chester. Chester's apostrophe S. Chester's story about how he got to New York. Okay. Let's take a look at the third one now. Pages 184 and 185. Just going right in chronological order. How would you describe the narrator's feeling about Tucker on this page, and how do you know? Well, the picture, the illustration shows me that he's sharing. So I think he's very kind and caring. Let's see if I can find that. I hopped down, stomped, and went off towards the smell. Chester, oh, he's telling the story here. They had hard-boiled eggs. They cold roast beef. They were having such a good time and laughing and singing. Naturally not, Tucker the Mouse said sympathetically. Why mind? Plenty for all. Who could blame you? Now, I have to admit, Chester Winter, I had more than a taste. Okay, so maybe I wasn't right. I was thinking this is the part where it was generous that actually happened on the page before. But here, he's very sympathetic listening to this story. How would you describe the narrator's feeling about Tucker on this page? Tucker is very... Let's spell it correctly. Here it is. It's a big word. SYMPATHICKCALLY. Sympathetically. He's very sympathetically listening to Chester's scary tale. Getting smashed by a roast beef sandwich is kind of scary. Scary tale. And it's T-A-L-E, tale, like a story tale. And then how do you know? And then this is where I'm going to put my evidence. Tucker kept asking questions of how Chester got out of a jam. And remember, that jam was him pinched under the roast beef sandwich. All right, 1, 2, 3. We got 3 done. You got 3 left on your own. Go to those pages, check it out, come up with the author's point of view, and then some text evidence. Same thing on the next one. How do Tucker and Harry feel about Chester's chirping? Remember how they said, oh, it sounds so musical. It sounds like a thrum, right? And then find those words from the text. I think it's thrum. And then on this one, is the narrator a character in a story? And this would be no. What pronouns? He. You keep hearing he and him and his. And then list 2 examples from the story that tells about this point of view. So you got to come up with 2 different ones here. Somewhere it says, he went to his hole and got a piece of cheddar wurst out. Okay? All right, backside. We're doing 4 out of 4. 4 out of 4. You got just 2 where you're going to use the paragraph clues to help you find the meaning. So this is our context clues. So write down the paragraph clues and then write down what the definition of sprang and route were. And they tell you what pages you can find those on. So you have to reread. This is your chance to get some reading practice in. The genre. Now this is what's awesome about making those foldables. If you did a good job on your foldables, bam, pull out your foldables. The genre is fantasy. Here's some ideas about the genre, and that could help you make your paragraph here about how do you know that this is a fantasy. I know this is a fantasy because, well, these characters can't talk. Mice don't talk, and most of the time cats are going to eat mice. All right. Over here is, how does Tucker and Harry make Chester feel at home? Now, yesterday at the end of my video, I gave you all the answers to this one. Remember, we said they brought him food, they visited with him, they talked with him, and they took him sightseeing. So I would make my paragraph based on those 3 things. And then down here, you get to pick 3 of our 8 vocabulary, write them, and put your definition. Remember, you can use your small books to help you with that part of the assignment. Okay? So a couple left on the front, and the back side is your assignment. Then back in your folder. Now, if you use this today, you're welcome to put this in your Thursday folder, just any of those folders, as long as I get it, and I'll be able to correct it. And then go ahead, make sure your name's on the back as you attempt to work really hard on your reading education. God bless your day, and we'll see you for your test tomorrow.